Today, a deal seems to be struck on the debt ceiling. A judge blocks the Texas abortion ban, and Google and YouTube decide to prohibit ads and monetization on climate denial content. Oh, what the slippery slope is that we have created. We've got a lot coming up today, and it all starts right now. Welcome to the news and why it matters. I am Sarah Gonzalez, and it is Thursday, and it is Pat and Stu Thursday. So
yay for us!
So we have Stu Berger, host of Stu Does America, also Pat Gray, host of Pat Gray Unleashed, back together again.
Very exciting.
Last week we had to split you guys up.
Was it last week?
We were divorced last
week.
Oh, we were. Mommy and Daddy are getting back together.
Oh, yay! All right, we've got some headlines today, and we're some interesting ones that I want to get to towards the end of the show that we were just discussing off air. I think it'll be a really good conversation. But let's first get to the boring stuff, which is Democrats and Republicans in the Senate. Let's just first get to the boring. Well, I want to keep them tuned in for the really good stuff.
And to be fair, anything involving Chuck Schumer and Mitch McConnell is automatically boring.
That's
Even
right.
if they were like talking about the most exciting thing in the world, it would still be boring.
Honestly, honest to God, I have a hard time leading with this stuff in my show because they're boring. Talking about these numbers is boring because, again, I feel like the average American is like, oh, what's another trillion, billion, gazillion dollars? You know, like your eyes glaze over and you get to the point where it's just random numbers to you and they're completely meaningless.
Trillions are the new thousands. That's
God,
where we
that's
are.
True.
Yeah.
So Democrats and Republicans in the Senate are apparently have reached a potential agreement on the debt ceiling while they are still continuing the debate on infrastructure and reconciliation. This apparently is Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer said that the Senate has an agreement to raise the debt ceiling and is moving towards a likely procedural vote Saturday, but it's just going to postpone the larger fight over the debt limit until, of course, just before Christmas, rather than fix, which we see so often. And you know that we're going to hear about this again right before Christmas, and it's going to be like, we're going to have to shut down the government again. It's going to be horrible. Haven't they done that before in December? I seem to recall that being a December thing.
They've done it
quite a
before
lot.
At every time of the year.
That's fair. So only the months January through December?
Yes.
They've done it? Okay. So the text of the bill says that it would increase the debt limit by $480 billion. And so that will tide them over until December 3rd.
They're not going with the $1 trillion coin?
Yeah, I know.
That was such a good idea, right?
Why would you stop at $1 trillion? Why not? It's backed by nothing. Why wouldn't you do a quadrillion? And then you could have until, I don't know, March before we reach that debt limit.
That's it. It's a couple months.
It'll push it back a few months, and we can get $2 quadrillion in debt. What's the difference?
It's true.
We're not going to pay either debt ever.
This extension gets us to December, and they raised it by $480 billion. It's
crazy.
And that gets us only to December.
It's crazy.
Early December, by the way. Not even late December. Early December.
And you know they're going to do the exact same thing in December. Kick it down the street again.
Yeah, the question is, what I really don't understand about all of this is why Mitch McConnell is helping.
Yes.
Now, it doesn't change much here, right? Like there's not much to change. Basically, where we're going to wind up going over this debt limit, we were going to raise it eventually anyway. But usually what happens is the party in power does it. So, and they have to pay the price when the other party says they raised the debt limit in all their commercials. Yeah. That's the dumb game that's being played here. So Mitch was like, we want some commercials coming at us too. This way you guys can run some commercials against us, we can run them against you, and we can all play this game of ridiculous theater together.
Well, and it wasn't just the day before he had said that he would not agree?
Yeah. Somebody found
to
some
any
pictures.
Of it? Right. It's like he literally just said the day before that he would not agree and he would not back down, and then he was like, all right, I'm backing down.
It just goes to show again how worthless Mitch McConnell is. He's worthless.
And it's not just him, though.
Terrible. That's why we didn't want him to win years ago when he had a really good opponent going against him. It was,
I can't remember his name,
what's
but
his
I do
face?
remember that.
It was governor for a while, right?
Matt Bevin.
Matt Bevin.
Oh.
Yeah.
I liked what's his face better.
Who? Which one?
I like
Which
that,
face?
Just that name.
No, yeah, it's a better name. It's a better name. Paul, what's his face?
But I mean, but it's not just Mitch McConnell. It just feels like there's so many of them in Congress
the
right
Republicans
now.
don't care either. They
No.
don't care about the debt or the debt limit. They don't care.
And to be fair, that was not a priority of President Trump's either.
True.
Right?
Yeah. He liked debt.
Yeah, he had no problem with it.
I believe he was the king of debt.
Yes.
was his own nickname for himself. So
And he actually bragged about liking debt.
Yeah, I mean, look.
So he wasn't a debt guy.
And to be
I
fair,
love debt.
He with a couple. Occasionally, he would
beautiful.
say a few words here and there about cutting debt and stuff, but it was never something he ran on. Never a priority for President Trump.
Yeah.
You know, he had other priorities. He was much more interested in. I think it really is a problem, though, and beyond the fact that it was a problem anyway, we also then spent $7 trillion on COVID stuff. We spent another $7 trillion, through Fed efforts. Then we had another couple trillion that are going to go through. I mean, was it probably going to be $3 or $4 trillion through these spending bills? These are numbers. You might as well say quadrillion or quintillion at this point. It means the same thing to most people, and it's why ridiculous ideas like the $1 trillion coin have. Pun intended, currency.
Right.
Like, it is actually something that people are talking about seriously doing. There are multiple big-time economists, Paul Krugman being the biggest one probably, who is actually advocating that we do mint the $1 trillion coin.
How is that possible? What does that do? Unless it's backed by $1 trillion in gold or something,
right.
Or something.
It just shows you how little this stuff really matters.
It's not backed by anything.
Yeah, I had Ovik Roy on the other day, and he has a big piece out about Bitcoin, and he was going through just the history of it. And when we went off the gold standard, it was $1 was 1/35 of an ounce of a gold. That was what it was worth. Now it's 1/1700th of an ounce of gold. Wow. In that period from Nixon to today, all of that has happened. And we have abandoned all sense when it comes to this stuff, to the point where it's really like a normal proposal to say, what if we print $1 trillion coin? And it's based on a law that was in the late 90s because we wanted to print some cool commemorative coins. And we said we can print or we can mint commemorative coins for any reason and any amount. And that's how they wrote their law. So now they're like, okay, well, what if we do it for $1 trillion and we just deposit it into the Fed and then we can get rid of the debt ceiling? It's like, wait a minute, you guys know that's not really what the law was supposed to do.
You said it's going to be a platinum coin. Is it worth $1 trillion in platinum?
No.
Is that how it works?
In fact, the law is written exactly for the reason.
That'd be a big freaking coin.
Has to be platinum, though. It has to be platinum. It can't be of any other metal. Really? Because the law says they can mint platinum coins in any amount for any reason. I mean, what's funny about that,
ludicrous.
Too, and it is because the whole point of defaulting, if we were to default, which, by the way, we would not do for a long time, the way the default would work is, first of all, we would go past this magical day, and then we would have to start prioritizing. We would shut down things. The Department of Education might shut its doors for a couple of weeks. In fact, the absolute last thing we would do after we turned the military off would be to default, because it's actually in the Constitution that we can't default. So we're talking about a ridiculous freak out. But the reason the freak out is there is because probably this would spook the markets, right? It would spook the economy. The same thing would happen if we printed $1 trillion coin to avoid debt. Right. We'd be like, oh, don't worry, guys, everything's fine. We printed $1 trillion coin. Who would take anything in the economic system and the monetary system seriously after that? We would have the same cataclysmic result as an actual default.
And a few years ago, the government did shut down. Remember that? For, was it 17 days or 27 days?
That was great.
I don't know.
It was.
But what we found out was a government shutdown isn't a total government shutdown.
Right.
They have to keep doing things.
Right.
Like everybody was afraid of their Social Security benefits. No, they have to keep paying it. They have to keep doing all the things that are super important. They have to do anyway, shut down or not.
So which means all of the excess is what gets eliminated, which is great.
Turns out to be a good thing, actually.
Yeah. That was the old essential versus non-essential jobs debate.
Right.
And it's like, if you're a non-essential job for the government, you shouldn't have a job. That's
my money, and I didn't agree to your you having that job.
Right.
So you should just leave.
Are we really? We are all admitting that we're funding thousands of non-essential jobs. I know it's true, but you're not supposed to admit it.
And you're supposed to be upset that you can't fund them anymore if the government shuts down.
Yeah. And then the worst part is, once they open it up, they do back pay for all the employees.
Yes.
So they wind up getting paid anyway for doing nothing.
Yeah. All right. I want to get to this other topic before we have to go to break. So a federal judge, I know we all saw this coming, but a federal judge issued a temporary injunction against the abortion ban in Texas, calling it, quote, an offensive deprivation of an important right. This is the heartbeat bill. They call it Senate Bill 8, where you cannot get an abortion after a fetal heartbeat could be detected, which could be as early as 6 weeks. And this ruling was in response to a challenge by the Biden administration. In his ruling on Wednesday, U.S. District Judge Robert Pittman accused the state of Texas of pursuing an unprecedented and aggressive scheme to deprive its citizens of a significant and well-established constitutional right, which is weird because I feel like a constitutional right is actually the right to life.
How dare you? How dare you with that propaganda?
Really?
Right to life. Unbelievable.
Right, it's in, but it's in.
The right to abortion's in there. No. That's actually the first words of the Constitution. Right to abortion, and then it starts. At least that's how the left sees it.
That is how they see it.
I mean, look, we've talked about this law a little bit before. I like the result of the law. Yeah. I am very, very much pro-life and would like, and actually
less babies killed.
Less babies killed. Yeah. Good.
Yeah.
More babies born, good. I would like them to go further and say 0 weeks. I don't think this should be 6 weeks. I want it to be 0. That being said, the way this law was constructed, I never thought it was going to hold up in court. It's not a good precedent for society. I don't think in general. We don't want California to say, you know what, global warming is a real problem, so you can sue everyone who buys an SUV or anyone who assists them buying an SUV. This could go down crazy roads. There's part of me that likes the gamesmanship of it a little bit. And look, who knows if it actually saved any lives? It may have. We know that the abortion clinics here in Texas, instead of having abortions, were working basically as a logistic factory to get people out of state to get abortions. So, I don't know that it saved any lives. I think anytime you try to save lives, though, it's usually a good idea. So, I really like the result. I'm not surprised that this is going to get overturned. I don't think at the end of the day, this is going to be the way that we cut down on abortions in this country. Much more, I think, legitimate challenge to it is the Mississippi challenge, which is going to be in the Supreme Court very soon. And I think the long-term answer is really just convincing people, because they're going to be able to get around these rules. If they want to go across the border to Mexico, they want to go across the border to Canada, they want to go to a liberal state after Roe versus Wade, if it ever is overturned, they'll do that. There are already activist organizations in Europe that are mailing abortion pills to women in the United States if they feel like they can't get them. It's going to be really hard to stop this through the law, though I support all those efforts. We have to be able to convince people that, more children alive is good. And at some point, maybe that'll click with people. But as of right now, it's still not.
Yeah, apparently some women in Texas were already resorting to the abortion pill. And well into their pregnancies, 20 weeks and things. It's just, it's really bad, really bad. So, I don't know. I think the answer is to overturn Roe v. Wade, which I don't know if it's ever going to happen. But I don't understand how this keeps being referred to as a constitutional right. I'd love for you to show me that in the U.S. Constitution, because I can show you the opposite in the preamble, where it says that we have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness for ourselves and our posterity. Well, our posterity, that's who you're pregnant with. That's our posterity, and they have the right to life. And I don't know why we don't argue it on that basis. I don't know why that doesn't ring true to anybody. But it's right there to me, as plain as can be in the preamble. And the founders didn't allow abortion. As soon as, with this, the same as in Texas, as soon as they knew a heartbeat was present, and that's the only way they could tell if you're pregnant back then abortion was illegal. You couldn't abort a baby. At the founding of the country. So there's no such thing as constitutional right for murdering children.
And that's the worst part. There's so many bad things here. But the most egregious, obvious error is not just that this isn't a right that's in the Constitution. It's really poor law. I mean, this decision is a terrible decision. Even people who support the right to abortion criticize the legal theory where they just came up with this right to privacy, which somehow also, which that's not even in the Constitution.
No.
And then in addition to that, they transferred that to the right to, I guess, keep private your decision to end a life in the womb. I mean, like, it's such a ridiculous stretch. It's obviously they just wanted to come up with some ridiculous way of doing this. And we've seen a lot of these big decisions. You know, the gay marriage one, again, like, I think a lot of people now are like, whatever, gay marriage, I don't care. But the law, the actual decision made by the Supreme Court was very shoddy. And I don't think that helps.
Yeah.
You know, I think, just follow the process and let the people change their mind over time. And that has happened with a lot of these things, a lot of wrongs that were later righted. Trying to force it through with some constitutional BS that isn't even close to being there is just the wrong approach. Not to mention, in this case, ending millions of lives, which is usually the wrong approach in almost every circumstance.
Kind of seems like it.
Yeah, you think?
Yeah.
You have such high standards.
I know, I'm a stickler on this one.
Jeez.
Yeah.
All right, we've got more to come. First, we want to thank our sponsor, ExpressVPN. So I don't know if you guys have noticed, but big tech, they're in the news. In fact, we have a big tech story coming up next that you're not going to want to miss. But they are they're taking all of your information, and they're selling it to the highest bidder. Not only that, but we're hearing stories now of the government going in and saying, we want all of the, certain users' search history, search data. We're looking for certain keywords. I mean, it's really scary out there. You want to make sure that you are protected by ExpressVPN. I use ExpressVPN. They use encryption to make sure that everything that you do is 100% anonymous and your IP address is masked. So you have it on all your devices. It's very, very easy, and it doesn't make your devices lag, which is one of the best things I think about it. So you can put it on your laptop, you can put it on your phone, you can put it on your TV even, and you will be protected from all of that. All you have to do is click a button. So if you, like me, believe that your data is your business and not big tech's or the government's in some instances, secure yourself with ExpressVPN. It is expressvpn.com/Y. You will get 3 extra months for free over at expressvpn.com/Y. All right, so Google advertisers and publishers, as well as YouTube creators, will be now prohibited from making ad revenue off content that contradicts well-established scientific consensus around the existence and causes of climate change. This is from the company Today. They said this includes content referring to climate change as a hoax or a scam, claims denying that long-term trends show the global climate is warming, and claims denying that greenhouse gas emissions or human activity contribute to climate change. This is set to start being enforced next month. And it is one of the most aggressive measures to date that any of the major platforms or publishers, however you think of them, have come up with. But it just seems like now it's just kind of dominoes. It's this domino effect of, as Stu, as you mentioned before when we were talking off air, Alex Jones, I guess, was he the first domino to fall?
One of them, yeah.
And now it's then they came for the anti-vaxxers. And by the way, anti-vaxxer,
meaning all sorts of things,
right? Which now, if you look up Merriam-Webster, says if you're against vaccine mandates,
right? Like, you're
an anti-vaxxer.
I joke about this all the time, right? Like that I'm the most pro-vaccine person in America outside of Donald Trump, and yet I would be classified an anti-vaxxer under that rule, which is like bonkers.
You're like the most pro-vaccine person I've ever met in my life.
Exactly. I basically work for Pfizer.
Yes.
And yet
I knew it.
That's I have a non-disclosure on that one, so can we delete that? No, but I mean, like, I am a fan of these. I think, we've talked about this at length. But like, legitimately, by that definition, I'm an anti-vaxxer because I'm totally against mandates.
Right.
And now they're going to put everybody in this category. And this is a bad idea from beginning to end. And what's fascinating about it, I think, is we just went through a cycle, right, where people said, you know what, I think this virus may have come from a lab in China. And they banned people, they restricted them, they shadow banned them, they kicked them off the internet, they did all these terrible things, and then just a few months later, everyone's like, oh crap, maybe this was made in a lab in China with some experiment gone awry and leaked out. And like, you'd think that would instill a bit of humility, right? Like, they could go either way here. They could say, you know what, wow, we made a mistake on that one. We got to make sure we're not getting too broad here. The other side of it would be to double down and triple down and quadruple down, which seems like they're doing. And to give the most Sarah-friendly content possible here, there are currently 35 COVID vaccines in phase 3 trials or later. Okay, 35 of them. There's not just 3; they're all over the world. What if one of them is bad?
Right.
Like, I would legitimately make an argument, as the most pro-vaccine person in America, that the Chinese vaccines pretty much suck.
Yeah.
I can't say that now on YouTube, I guess.
Isn't it in the 20s as far as efficacy?
What's that?
It's in the 20s, right?
It's much lower
27
than,
or 28% effective.
Yeah, and what if, legitimately, I think the record on these that we're using in the United States is pretty good. But what if the fifth one that comes out isn't? Are we going to be able to talk about that?
No. Which I think is, to me, that is the root cause of the problem here, is that we now are supposed to believe, when it comes down to it, the science. If there's a scientific consensus, the science is settled. Right? And every single time we learn something new in history that proves that the scientific consensus was completely wrong. They used to tell pregnant women it was okay to smoke. How many drugs have been recalled off of the market that are no longer there, that went through all of the trials that you're supposed to go to, and then years later they said, just kidding, this is killing people or making them very sick. So the science, they're trying to manipulate all of these, when they give these statements about, well, this is a well-established scientific consensus, therefore there can be no other correct answer. And they're completely discounting the fact that science is literally the opposite of what they're saying. Like, science is supposed to literally always be evolving. And now you're not allowed to ask any sorts of questions anytime a bunch of scientists in a lab have made up their minds.
Well, and there are legitimate scientists who do have problems with it.
Right.
Virologist, one of the leading virologists in the world, who's a big vaccine guy. He doesn't have problems with vaccine, except this one. He's a little concerned about the mRNA.
Yeah.
And he was saying that his research has shown that, the virus or the vaccine rewrites your immune system, because then it looks for a specific type of infection instead of non-specific. Our antibodies are non-specific, so that they fight virtually everything that enters your body that shouldn't be there. Well, supposedly this mRNA rewrites that code, and it starts looking for just the one virus, which is why, supposedly, he says, people are getting sick with so many other things right now. Yeah. Is he right? I don't know, but I'm not, I'm not a scientist, but I know that there's scientists out there who are saying, wait a minute, we need to take another look at this. And there's nothing wrong with taking another look at it. Right. I'm not saying we should ban the vaccine. I'm not saying people shouldn't take the vaccine. I'm going to get it eventually, probably myself. But probably not the mRNA vaccines.
And this is the thing. I think it's less about what is true and what is not. Like, that doctor could be, he might be proven 100% right at some point in the future, might be proven 100% wrong. But the point is, we should all be able to talk about these things, especially,
and not be banned.
Especially when we're talking about a breaking story, right? We're all in the middle. This is not us looking back at 1918 and saying what worked and what didn't.
Yeah, it's been going on for a few months.
Right, it's going on now. Yeah. These things are new, and that's why I think a lot of people are nervous about using them, and hiding dissent is a bad way of doing business. We have this sort of free market of ideas that I think is something that has been a strength of American discourse for a long time. And some of that discourse is dumb. Look, we talked about Alex Jones. I think a lot of the things Alex Jones says are really dumb. He's been sued for a lot of them. I don't think the 9/11 was an inside job. I don't believe any of that. But would I ever
Sandy Hook was not a hoax.
Right. Would I want him off the internet for those things? No. Let him say them.
Because we can decide for ourselves.
And what happened with those things, right? Yes, there are some people in our society that think Sandy Hook was a hoax.
Very
few. It's a very small percentage, and you're never going to change someone's mind on that. So don't even try. Just put the information out there and let people decide for themselves.
Well, I also think, just kind of circling back to the fact that now they're calling this climate denial content, and you're not allowed to put that along with all of the vaccine stuff. It does feel like now they're kind of they've mapped this out. This is their path, right? Like they want to push something through as part of their agenda, right? Just like the vaccines, they want to push something through, and the way that they do that is to silence anyone who has a problem with it. So it looks a lot like that. But Trump was the fascist.
Right. And there again, with the climate change thing, you've got respected scientists who vehemently disagree, like Michael Schellenberger, who has written a great book. It's Apocalypse Never. Yeah. And he actually goes and talks to the people who supposedly said that, and it's the IPCC, who supposedly said that, there's going to be cataclysmic climate change within 10 or 12 years, whatever it was AOC was citing. I think we're down to 9 years now. And he goes to the people who were responsible for saying that and finds out they didn't say that. They never said that. Nobody feels that way. Nobody is saying that. And yet it's being reported over and over and over and repeated by the President of the United States.
And does that get banned?
No.
When AOC says that, should she? I mean, under this policy,
and it's completely discredited.
Yeah.
Completely discredited.
Yeah. All right, we've got more to come. First, we want to thank our sponsor, Built Bar. If you love chocolate and you just don't want to gain 500 pounds from eating Snickers bars all day, you have to try Built Bar. You need them in your pantry to go to whenever you like to graze and start getting hungry. It's all covered in 100% chocolate, and it is a protein bar, but it's healthy. It's good for you. They're all 180 calories or less. They've got high protein. They've got high fiber. They're low sugar. They fit, if you do keto diet like I do, they fit within a keto diet. They are keto friendly. And they've got really, really great flavors. I think the chocolate chip cookie dough is still out. If it is, you're gonna wanna get your hands on it. And I think I just got an email. This is the best/worst part of Built Bar when you buy. You get the emails for all of the flavors that come out. And it just makes me hungry all the time. And then I wanna buy all of them, but that's okay, because they're all delicious. I think there's a churro. My husband, who's the director, is in my ear, and he just said, want to buy? Because I do buy all of them. It's a problem for him. But they have churro puffs. So it's like a marshmallowy flavor, and it's churro. It's amazing, you guys. You got to go try them. You can go to built.com. Use promo code NEWS15. You'll save 15% off of your order over at built.com, promo code NEWS15. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki is downplaying the claim made by John Kerry, who is, of course, the climate czar, who, we were just talking about the climate earlier, who is such a good climate czar that he constantly travels the country and the world in private jets, which is always good for the climate. Always
He's
good
so good for the climate, it's okay that he does that.
Yes.
Oh, I see.
Yeah,
so it voids out the bad.
Right.
And he's told us, I'm not going to apologize for that. I want to apologize for taking private jets to try to heal the planet. So.
Well, there you have it. There it is.
He's proud of his hypocrisy.
Well, I think most Democrats are. So Jen Psaki is downplaying the claim that John Kerry made that Joe Biden literally, and I use that because that was what John Kerry said, literally did not know what was happening with the recent crisis involving France. It was between the U.S. and France after Australia dumped a multi-billion-dollar contract with France for submarines and then signed on with the U.S. and the U.K. instead. France canceled a gala in the United States. They recalled their ambassadors to the U.S. and Australia. They were really mad, but he's just the president of the United States, and John Kerry's he actually had no clue that any of it was going on. So White House press secretary was asked about it. Here is what Peppermint Patty had to say.
He said this president's first love is foreign policy. So why doesn't he know about these things in real time?
Of course he knew about the French being displeased. Let me finish.
Literally had not been aware.
Peter, I would encourage you to ask John Kerry specifically about the context of his comments. The president and the former secretary are also good friends. He relies on his counsel, and as he does with many members of his national security team, but that certainly is not what he was intending to convey.
Now that we've gotten a hold of him and put the fear of God in him, that is definitely not what he was trying to convey. I highly encourage you to go ask him that question now. And I want to get your thoughts on this, gentlemen. But I also, just for context, I would like to present to you Joe Biden just the other day saying God knows what because no one can understand. Watch.
Parenthetically, when you build a charging station, it's like back in the day when my grandpa worked for the American Oil Company back in the turn of in the 1920 in that area. They went from state to state convincing people that allow them to put 20,000 gallons of gasoline under the ground. They didn't want them around.
I love one of my favorite times is the turn of the 1920.
Yeah.
I love the turn of the 1920s.
It's a great era.
Yeah, it really was.
Yeah.
But you hear that and you're like, no, I'm pretty sure he probably literally did not know what was going on.
100%. I mean, he's so out of it all the time.
Yeah.
And
he did not know.
No,
he did not know.
And the reason Kerry came out with it is because he loves the French people. He's over there all the time, and I'm sure he has these discussions with French reporters all the time. And it usually doesn't make it to the United States. We don't usually hear about his little discussions with the French over there. But then it blew up, and what I think he's doing is placating the French by telling them, look, he didn't mean to slight you guys. He didn't even know about it.
Right.
He didn't even know. He literally didn't know about it. And he wasn't thinking, well, we're going to pick up on that and realize that the president is so out of it and has such cognitive decline that he didn't even know about our oldest ally being pissed off enough to recall their ambassador? Wow. Well, of course, that's going to blow up. So then the White House gets a hold of him, and I'm sure they told him, hey, you need to spin this some other way because you can't be saying this about the president. You can't. Makes him sound completely out of touch, which of course he is.
Which he is.
And then what is Jen Psaki going to say but lie?
Well,
Which is what she did.
That's all she does every day with that smug smile on her face. I'd just like to slap
That was a very mean face from Sarah there. What the amazing thing I think about the story that Pat just told, it is literally the best case scenario. Like the fact if the best case scenario is John Kerry was lying to the French, right? Basically saying, oh, look, he didn't even know. I mean, that is the best case is we have absolutely no credibility on the world stage. That's our best case. Worst case is we have a man with no cognitive ability as the president of the United States, whose mental acuity is stuck back in the turn of the 20. And that could be very well where we are. And I think there's a really good possibility. I am of the belief that Biden really does seem to want to have a legacy and push these difficult things through and does care about turning this as close to socialism as we can possibly get it in the next year. I don't think he's completely disconnected, but I do think that a lot of this administration is being run on autopilot. He's involved in some of these decisions, but he does not have the ability to focus on all of this wide plethora of things, which you would think that's a main requirement for a president. He sits back. These people like John Kerry, again, a climate czar, having nothing to do with this thing at all. He has all these people, the Blinkens of the world and Susan Rices of the world, they're all out there doing his job for him, and he occasionally gets involved, and I bet they don't even want him involved. I mean, they're at a point where they've kind of wrestled control of the country away from the American people and the decisions they've made, no matter how poor they are.
So is that who you think is ultimately calling the shots, is whoever the advisor is for that particular area? They're just running with whatever the hell they want?
We've talked about this more times than we care to remember with Glenn Beck. Philip Drew, Administrator, a book that was Woodrow Wilson's favorite book. And his idea of how the presidency should work is very similar to what we're seeing here with Biden, with the exception of, I think, he could get through sentences. Philip Drew was able to get through sentences. But he would assign experts to all these fields, and they would do it. It wasn't about politics. It was just about the experts doing what they were supposed to be doing. It's basically every branch of the government is Anthony Fauci, right? Where he just gets to assign whatever policy he thinks because it's his area of expertise. I think a lot of that's going on. I am of the belief that he's not completely checked out, though. I think I almost feel like it's too nice to him to say that he has no hand in this. These catastrophes, things like pushing pushing through the Afghanistan debacle is a good example of it. His experts said no. They said, please no. Please don't allow this to happen.
And then he lied about
pushed
that
it through
too.
anyway, and then lied about it. So it's not a good way to run a government. And I think we've seen so far this has been a catastrophe of a presidency.
Yeah, Pat, last word on this.
Whether or not he has power, I think he has some power too. But I don't think he has his faculties with him.
Right.
And I think he's probably been told about the French situation, and he probably forgot.
Yeah.
I'll bet you he was told, because, I mean, it was everywhere.
Right.
It was on the news. You couldn't escape that.
Yeah.
And as the president, you're going to be told, French just recalled their ambassador.
hope so.
And I'm sure it just went out of his head
Yeah.
because he doesn't have the ability to keep that in it anymore. So.
All right, we've got more to come. First, we want to thank our sponsor, Patriot Mobile. So, you watch the news, everything's crazy. There's open borders now. We're talking to you about how much they're spending on just keeping the government open until December. There's a lot going on, and you may think that there is nothing you can do, but you can. You can buy from companies that believe what you and I believe in. We got to stick together right now. There is one company that has been willing to stand with you since 2012. That is Patriot Mobile. They are America's only Christian conservative wireless provider. They have the same nationwide coverage as all of the other major carriers. They all use the same towers, and they have plans to fit any budget. They've got a 100% U.S.-based customer service team, so you are going to be talking with someone in the United States. And the most important, Patriot Mobile shares your values and supports organizations that are fighting for religious freedom, that are fighting for the sanctity of life, that are fighting for what you believe in. By the way, if you are a first responder or veteran, you will get an extra discount on top of their already very reasonably priced plans. You got to go to patriotmobile.com/news. You can get free activation with the offer code NEWS. That is patriotmobile.com/news. Model Emily Ratajkowski said this week that she stayed silent about a groping allegation against musician Robin Thicke for nearly a decade because, well, she feared that if she came forward, it would derail her dreams of becoming famous. Apparently, she wrote a new book called My Body, and she was on the set of the Blurred Lines video in 2013. She explains it in this book, and she says that Robin Thicke was very intoxicated. He came up and groped her bare breasts without consent, she says. And she added, I was an unknown model, and if I had spoken out or complained, I would not be where I am today. I would not be famous. So she wrote this book, and she goes into the details, which I don't think I need to get into because I'd rather hear from you guys. I have my own personal opinion.
I kind of want to hear from you on this one.
Me too.
First?
Yeah,
me too.
Well, I feel like you get it all when you hear, if I had said something, I would not be famous.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard for me to feel sorry for someone who is basically saying there was something in it for him and there was something in it for me. To me, that sounds a lot like an unspoken contract there, that it's okay for you to do that because I'm going to get something out of it too, and I'm going to benefit as well.
Yeah.
I don't feel sorry for her. I don't think that it's anything that she should be writing about now as if, like, what does she want? An apology? I mean, look at where she is today. So it's very hard for me to, I mean, he shouldn't have done it. Right? Like you should never grope a woman without her consent. Okay. But it's like, well, it sounds a lot like there was something in it for you. So, I mean, I just think that it's all summarized very nicely when she says, I would not be famous.
Yeah, I think she said the quiet part out loud there.
Yeah.
I think you're supposed to say something about, like, I wanted to achieve my dreams.
I was worried that the men in power wouldn't let me.
You're not supposed to say, like, I wanted to be famous. And I thought if I said something, I wouldn't be. I don't think she would have had a problem being famous. I think that probably would have maybe.
She shows her breasts enough.
That seems to be a pastime she participates in. At some point, it's odd. Like, look, of course, as you point out, no woman should ever have to be, deal with something like that from some drunk idiot. But on the other side of that, she seems to have made some sort of cost-benefit analysis there, which is like, I'd rather be famous than get this person in trouble for groping me. Which is, I mean, not a decision she should have to make, to be clear. That's not fair that she's put in that position. But also, it's an interesting value judgment, I think. And the way she says it, I think, really crystallizes it.
Because a lot of women in this industry sleep their way to the top. And maybe they'll say later on, well, I was pressured or this happened or that happened. But at the end of the day, they know exactly what they're doing and they're in it to get famous anyway. So I just don't have any sympaty for that.
Yeah, I'm kind of tired of hearing about it. A decade later, 2 decades later.
Now that you're rich and famous and have millions of dollars, we're supposed to feel sorry for you.
Right.
Yeah.
And now you just want, I don't know, what, publicity? Do you want to sue him? What are you setting up here?
Right. Yeah, that's what bothers me is it's like you're saying this now. Why?
Right.
Because she even says, I don't think he would have done it if he had been sober.
I thought that was the actual director who said that. I could be wrong on that quote.
Okay.
But like the director.
Oh, you're right. It is the director.
That it did happen.
Yep.
And again, like there's a line I think we'd all agree. There's a line on. There are situations, and Harvey Weinstein this happened a lot, where Weinstein he obviously is famous for all of the assaults, but there's also a lot of allegations that he would have consensual sex with women to improve their careers.
They knew exactly what they were doing.
They knew what they're doing. Now, this is a little different, that she's getting groped unwillingly, and like it's not good. And the fact that Robin Thicke is still like on TV on like talent shows, and everyone seems to accuse him of all these terrible things. I don't know. I don't follow this stuff as closely maybe as I need to understand it, but like, everyone seems to make this video out to be the most horrific thing of all time. Like it was like basically, the word they always use is rapey, which is a funny word. It just is a funny way of saying something very, very terrible. But like,
they also say, "Baby, it's cold outside."
They say that's rapey too, which again. So I don't. It's a very strange story, and she has kind of made this name for herself of basically like with this weird back and forth between "Hi, I'm topless," "Hi, stop talking about my body," and then naming her book "My Body," and then complaining about people talking about her body. And it's like, well, look, you're a model, and obviously. Sage Steele got in trouble. We talked about this on my show last night, for saying one of the things she got in trouble for was saying she counsels younger people at the office around ESPN. They come in and maybe they're dressed a little too skimpy. And she says to him, like, hey, like, you know what you're going to get with this. You know what you're doing. You're not an idiot. Like, watch it because, it's not their fault, but, they should know to try to minimize this as much as possible. She gets flamed by everybody because she's blaming the victims or something. I think, there's a place for people.
And they took her off the air, right?
Yeah, but that was only one of the reasons they did. But there's a place for like successful women in the industry to counsel a younger person on best practices. That's not something that should be looked down upon. That should be the way that's done, right? And with Emily, and I would say her last name if I knew how to pronounce it. I don't want to say I'm too familiar with her, but like this seems to be just a back and forth. Let's walk the line here. Like I'll get some publicity on this side, I'll go back on the other side. Hey, I'm topless. Hey, stop talking about how I'm topless.
Right.
It just seems like a game she's playing to great effect. By the way, she's incredibly famous because of it.
Yeah. All right, we got to take a break. We'll be back. It just drives me nuts. I mean, the obvious. Hey, thanks to all of you who have gone on to wherever you get your audio podcasts and subscribed to the news and why it matters. Those of you who have not yet, there is still time. You can go on, subscribe, rate, and review, and you may see your review read live on air. Look, there's something in it for us. There's something in it for you, because we know how the human mind works. All right, today we've got 5 stars from Shalamon, top news show. Sarah, thank you so much for all that you do, that you and your crew does for keeping us updated on all these things. When people ask where I get my information, I show them your page and tell them how much I absolutely love all of you. We appreciate that very much. And also, don't forget to tune in to Stu Does America. You can find that, is it right after the show?
It's at 8 p.m. Eastern. I think that's the show in between us.
Yes. Oh, it's Chad's show in between us.
That's right.
Yeah.
We're going to be talking a little $1 trillion coin tonight, which I think should be fun.
Are you?
Going into some of the history on that. It is pretty amazing.
Okay, good. So make sure to tune into that. And also don't forget to tune into Pat Gray Unleashed as well.
Before this show.
Yeah,
somewhat before this
well,
show.
before or after, depending on how you want to view it.
If you have a late night, it's after.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for being here, you guys.